Hi everyone, welcome, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you all are doing great. It is Friday, and I know I said my video would be up on Friday, but it's kind of late on Friday, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get my editing done, but I'm going to try. How was everybody's Super Bowl? I have to just tell you that I am in Houston, and I am a Dallas fan. So I am, let's say I am one of a Dallas fan in my whole family because they're all Houston fans. So I go hard for Dallas because nobody likes Dallas here. No one. You cannot even find a Dallas. I have to order things that are Dallas. So anyway, I wanted the Bengals to win. I did think that they were going to win until a holding call was called on a not holding call. Anyway, what I was really there for was the halftime show, which I thought was amazing because I'm 48, and it was a show for us. If you're 48, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And that's it. So how was your Valentine's Day? Mine was okay. It was all right. I got through it. As I've mentioned, I think in the past, I raised my granddaughter, and she's 3. My daughter passed almost 2 years ago, and she left 3 beautiful granddaughters. 2 of them are older, and they live with their dad. My youngest, I raised, and so it was cool to she kind of knew what Valentine's Day was this year. So we just kind of ate a lot of candy, looked at Valentine's. We had a good time. So I hope everybody else's was good. So today we're going to get into the case of Darlie routier, the Texas housewife on death row for the killing of her 2 young boys. And this case has always interested me because it happened around the time that I had my 2 girls and they were young. And it really captured my attention. And I always thought that she was guilty until I got older and started re-looking at the case. So I want to tell you the story, then I want to tell you my thoughts, and then I want to hear about your thoughts. So I hope that you will stick around, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start from the beginning. I have some notes over here, so if you see me looking over here, that's me just trying to verify what I've done, my research, and trying to get some things right for you guys, okay? So Darlie Lynn Routier was born on January the 1st, 1970. She initially grew up in Pennsylvania. My phone's driving me crazy. I don't have a camera yet. I'm not a professional YouTuber, so it's going dark, and I know that there's a setting you can have to stop it, but my iPhone is it's not participating. It doesn't want to be on YouTube. It doesn't want to film me in particular. So I'm kind of like, we're in a feud. We're in a feud, and I'm not going to give up. So I may have to tap it like this. So y'all just excuse that too. Anyway, she was born in 1970, and she lived in Pennsylvania, okay? She had a younger sister. Her mom and dad divorced, so she would move to Lubbock, Texas. And as a teenager, she would move to Lubbock, Texas with her stepdad, her mom, and her sister. When she was 15, her mom and her were working at a restaurant called Western Sizzler. And a young boy about 17 years of age named Darren was manager. He was manager at the Western Sizzler. And they met, they fell in love, and right after she graduated high school, they got married. Okay? So they were married in 1988. After that, Darren opened his own business, and it was a company, a company that tested circuit boards. Now, sounds like he was pretty smart. He tested circuit boards, and this company made some money. He really did. He made money, and he made quick money, and they were young. So they moved to Dallas. They moved to Dallas, and they buy them a real big house. She wanted a fountain in front. They have a real big old fountain in the front of the house. They spent tons of money in renovations for this house. They buy a boat. He buys a Jaguar. She buys, I think, like an Escalade or something really nice like that. Okay, he buys her expensive jewelry. She dyes her hair blonde and it's big, Texas curls. She gets her some, and he is proud. She's a little tiny thing with these and the hair. And so not long after that, she ends up getting pregnant. So Darlie gives birth to her first son in 1989, and his name is Devin. 2 years later, in 1991, she gives birth to her second son, and his name is Sweet Damon. And then in 95, she gives birth to her third son, Drake. They were described by people as being the perfect family. She was a housewife, a mom. She would bake cookies. The neighborhood kids would come over. They would want to stay there. She had them over. They had built a real big hot tub in the backyard with redwood. It was enclosed, and the kids would come over and play in the hot tub, and Darlie would be there. And they said that she loved the kids around. They would help out families in need. They had a neighbor that the dad had come down sick with cancer, and he wasn't able to make his mortgage payments, so they helped him out with that. And they just said, that they were happy, and they were just, a good, happy family. However, the business would start to do bad, and it wasn't doing as good as it had been doing. So they were having trouble keeping up with this lavish lifestyle that they had been used to. So Darren opens another company. He opens up, it's called Champagne Wishes. Champagne Wishes. And his idea is to take his boat out at sunset and take couples out at sunset for like a romantic boat trip and serve them champagne and go for a sunset champagne and boat trip. So that's what he was doing. Now, of course, this wasn't bringing in as much money as his business. So that they were trying to stay afloat. Now, something would happen in the morning hours of June 6th, 1996, that would totally change everything for this family. In 1996, Darlie was sleeping on the downstairs couch. She says that the boys had been playing in the hot tub. She had wrapped them up in blankets and brought them in. She says that they had popped popcorn. They were watching a movie. She was going to sleep downstairs because she hasn't been sleeping well at all. Maybe from the stress of the money. I'm not sure. But she said she needed a good night's sleep. The baby had kept her up, and it was Darren's turn to sleep with the baby, who was 7 months old. To, I guess get up, change the baby. She was going to sleep. So she fell asleep downstairs. Now, what happens next has been very controversial. And honestly, she changed her story a little bit quite a few times when she retold it. But there's reasons for that, I feel like. Remember, this is my research along with allegedly what I think kind of what I've taken from different parts of what I've read. So bear with me on this when I tell you that it's alleged when I put in my thoughts. But a lot of this can just be found in court documents, or if you watch or you go in and read a lot, you can find this yourself, okay? So they had installed a new big screen TV and they went down and they were watching a movie. Before this happened, her sister had been over that night. And Devin, I believe, drove the sister home, or the sister left. They had been arguing, Darlie and her husband, because her husband's car had been in the shop. Okay, so there's no car in the garage. Darlie's car was parked on the curb of the street. So the man that had his car called and was rude to Darlie and said he needs to come pick up his car. It's ready. And he was rude and short to her. So she'd gotten off the phone and told him, you need to go get your car. This man was rude to me and I don't appreciate it. Whatever was said. And that was a little tiff between them. But nevertheless, she slept downstairs with the boys. Around 2:30 a.m., Darlie said she was awoken by the sound of Damon crying, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," while she was sleeping on the couch. She woke up to see a silhouette of a man walking away from her. It was dark and she was groggy and confused. She gets up, she follows the man through the kitchen toward the utility room. And I'm going to put up a map for you of the house. As the man left, he drops a butcher knife. Darlie said she picked up the knife and headed to the family. She picked up the knife because she thought the man was still in the house. She then headed toward the family room. She turned on the lights to find her two boys and herself had been brutally stabbed and attacked. Damon, who was 5, was stabbed twice in the chest with such force, they said, that the knife almost went through his entire body. Damon was stabbed 6 or more times. Think about that. That's a lot. Darlie had slice wounds on her right forearm. Darlie is left-handed. One on her left shoulder, and her throat had been cut. It was 2 millimeters away from her carotid artery. Darlie dials 911. Someone came here, she said, someone came here, broke into my house, stabbed me and my children. My children are dying. I need help. Someone came in here and stabbed them. She goes to the door and screams for her neighbor, Karen, across the street, because Karen is a nurse. She says, "Oh my God, my babies are dying. Where is the ambulance?" Okay, about this time, you can hear Darren in the background. I think it was 40 seconds into the call. You can hear Darren in the background. He began CPR on Devin. Darren did not see anyone in the house at this point in time. Okay, so I want you to imagine what happened. She wakes up. I don't know if she took something to go to sleep. I'm not sure. To all this happening, she's screaming. She's calling 911. She's screaming for the neighbors. She's cut. Her babies are cut. The 911 operator then tells her to stay on the phone with her. Then she tells her, do not touch anything. Darlie says, I already touched the knife. She says that to the 911 operator. Later in her trial, that's going to be held against her. They're going to claim that that was her way of trying to say that's why her prints were on the knife. Okay? So, in the haste of all that, she says, oh no, I already touched the knife. Okay? Then they're saying that she did not mention, no one mentioned that the baby was still upstairs. Drake is still upstairs. Darren does say that the baby is upstairs and he is sleeping. So the police would go on to say that there was no blood found in the garage or on the fence. The mulch was not disturbed. There was but bloody footprints. They were found in the kitchen floor, but they belonged to Darlie. They led to the kitchen sink. Police claim that Darlie took the knife to the kitchen sink, slit her own throat, then tried to clean it up. However, pictures of the crime scene show a sink that is dirty with blood. There were 2 sponges at the sink that they confiscated, and they found no blood on those sponges. So it doesn't really appear that she tried to clean up the sink. Also, the mulch that they claim was undisturbed, there's a picture of the window, which, by the way, the screen was slashed. Below that window, there is no mulch. So I'm not sure if that's maybe a Photoshop picture that's going around on the internet or if that's an actual photo. I'm not sure, but I did see it. Also, there was no blood where Darlie was laying on the pillow. However, later they did find blood on her pillowcase and on her pillow. And they said that she didn't really start bleeding until she stood up. Then that's when the blood came from her. Okay, so they come up with the theory that she slit her own throat. They say that, and I'm going to put up pictures. She has these bruises. They're just black and purple. They say that are the bruises from her children kicking her. That they're not defensive wounds, that they're bruises from the boys kicking their mom off of them. The knife used to cut the screen was taken from the kitchen, and that you can see the wooden block where the knives are in the kitchen, and it appears that a knife is gone. They said the blood was inconsistent with a struggle. They say this is another weird thing. 75 yards down the alley, next to a garbage can, in their neighborhood, there is a white sock. The white sock belonged. Okay, so the white sock. So they located a white sock 75 yards next to a trash can. That was about 3 houses down. The white sock contained both the boys' blood on the sock. Inside the sock, toward the toe part, they located Darlie's skin cells. Their theory on the white sock is that Darlie used it to prevent fingerprints from getting on the knife that she must have used to murder her own children. However, the problem with that is Darlie left her fingerprints on the knife when she picked up the knife initially because she thought the killer was still in the house. So that's questionable. Remember, we're talking about a death row case, which means that you would have to convict without a doubt that this person was guilty. So right there, I see kind of like a little bit of a doubt. Okay, so this is really interesting. They only charged Darlie in Damon's murder. they had said that they were only going to charge her in Damon's murder because in case she got acquitted for Damon's murder, they would recharge her for Devon's murder. But what came out was that there was actually thought that there was 2 murder weapons because on one knife, they only found Darlie and Damon's blood. They could not find Devon's blood on that murder weapon. So that's interesting. A lot of people had a theory that maybe there was a second killer in the house that kind of brought that theory up. But it sure did kind of raise a questionable doubt in my mind. But I don't think the defense even brought that up at all. And if y'all see me do this, it's because my phone hates me. It doesn't want to be on YouTube at all. I've tried to put it on the do not turn off, whatever. It's not going. So I have to keep doing that. So doesn't want to be here. So let's get back to it. So there is now the partial thumbprint thing. There was a partial thumbprint on the glass coffee table in the living room. At first, the police were like, it's Darley's or it's one of the children's. Well, they buried the boys together in the same little coffin, holding hands. The medical examiner did not take fingerprints of the boys. So they had to exhume the bodies of the boys. What they did was they were able to get some prints, but they were able also to measure the boys' thumbs, and they came to the conclusion that these were not boys or small children's. This was not a child's thumbprint. So then they went to exclude Darley's prints. They could exclude every one of her fingers except for one finger on her right hand. One finger could not be excluded, and that was it. So that's kind of where they were at with that partial thumbprint. But I'll tell you a little update on that in a little bit. Okay, so far what we have is there's no clear motive, no witnesses, no confession. We have circumstantial evidence. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, when they interviewed Darlie routier, she had been in surgery for 2 hours. She had just gotten out. She was on something like Demerol, I believe, and they decided that was a good time to go ahead and interview her about what had happened with her and her boys. Not to mention, she is in shock. She probably doesn't even know or understand what has happened. And believe me when I tell you, I know what trauma feels like. You don't know, and you don't even understand that it's happened. So for her to not understand and not remember her exact words or what exactly she did is perfectly normal for her. And you know what? Not to even remember a year from that date or 2 years from that date is normal trauma response. I just wanted to throw that in there because I can't imagine. I have lost a child and it was extremely traumatic, but I didn't see my child horrifically murdered. And I'm not saying she's innocent, but I'm saying, and especially for her husband too, they're saying she didn't react normally, but I'm saying then he didn't react normally either. Just wanted to throw my little 25 cents in there. Okay, so it happened to be that her baby who had passed was turning 7, and I believe this was 8 or 9 days after he passed away. So the family gets together, her in-laws, her husband, her sister, her mom, her dad. They all get together and they have a service where they pray and they're solemn and they're sad. But then they're going to go to the graveside and they're going to leave balloons and they're going to leave flowers and they're going to have a little celebration like they wanted to if he was alive. She said that her baby wanted to be 7 so bad that he couldn't wait to be 7. Her sister had bought some silly string to the graveside for them to spray. So they're there at the graveside. They're all singing happy birthday. Her sister and her are spraying the silly string, and she's smiling. She's smiling, spraying the silly string. There happened to be a news crew there filming that. She was tore up for this. Tore up. People said, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this mother is at this baby's grave, smiling, chewing gum, spraying silly string. She had no makeup on. Her hair wasn't fixed. She was spraying it for her baby. I went and put balloons at my daughter's grave, and I do for her birthday and Mother's Day and everything else. And I put a smile on for my grandbabies. I do it. Okay? I didn't do nothing to my baby. Nothing. And she did it, and she was persecuted for it. This makes me really upset. Really upset because nobody knows what it's like unless you have lost a baby to go out there and try and still celebrate the life that they had. Those 7 years that he had here. The jury would ask to play this video 8 or 9 times. One of the jurors said, had her defense done their job and showed what happened prior to this silly string video, they would not have convicted her. They convicted her based on a video of her and all of her family, including her husband, celebrating her son's birthday. Because let me tell you what they tried to pull. First, they said she did it for the insurance money. Okay? $10,000 was the insurance money. That did not even pay for the boy's funeral. They said, well, she did it for the insurance money. Her husband had $800,000. Why didn't she just kill her husband? Then they said she didn't want any kids. She wanted to live a lavish lifestyle. Then they said, well, why didn't she kill her baby? Then they said, what else did they say? Darlie took the stand. Forgot to tell you that. It didn't go over well. She became seen as a hostile witness, which she probably was very angry because when you lose somebody, especially your babies, you go through a stage of anger. And she was going through all the grieving stages in prison. Her babies had been taken from her. They had been murdered. She went through the grief in prison. And she probably was stuck in a very angry stage. And I don't know what kind of defense attorney you are to let your client take the stand under any circumstances. So eventually, they replaced her court-appointed attorney with an attorney that had worked on a gag order for her husband and mother-in-law in relation to this trial. Well, he didn't do crap either. They had a neighbor that reported a sighting of a man fitting that description 10 minutes from the routier home at 2 a.m. the night of the murders. Well, they never called him either. So the jury deliberates. They sentence her to death on February 1997. Okay, so this story isn't over. The attorneys for Darlie that have taken over this case have still been fighting for her. They've been fighting for the DNA evidence to be reviewed for that thumbprint, and they found a couple more thumbprints that they want reviewed by the new technology of the DNA. So finally, the Innocence Project has okayed that for review now. So in October 29th, 2019, they said that the Innocence Project approved the DNA evidence to be sent to the labs for more testing. They also are sending over, remember the window that had been slashed, the thing? They're sending over all of that and the brick surrounding the window. That was sent over December 17th, 2021. And they believe that they can possibly get her a new trial. Now, Darren, for me personally, I think he should have been looked at a little further, because he did admit to going to his father-in-law and wanting to stage a break-in where they would steal jewelry and that the insurance would pay him money so he could get caught up on his bills that he owed from when his business went under. He said it never happened, but that just seems kind of fishy to me, enough to where they should have looked a little bit more into him. And the fact that he never questioned Darley's guilt. He always thought she remained innocent. He always thought she was innocent. And for me, if that was my babies and someone said that my spouse had done it, I would at least have to question them, be mad at them, something. He never was. He never faulted on her. She did divorce him in prison. She said it was mutual. And he got remarried. And remember the little boy that they had together? He eventually, at first, he went to live with his parents. And then a few months later, he took the little. So then in 2020, he remarried. He has a brand new business. It doesn't say what it is, but it said his net worth is worth $1 million. He still believes in Darley's innocence. Drake is living with his father. Darren lives in a brand new home in Lubbock, Texas. In 2000, Drake lives with his dad, Darren, in Lubbock. But in 2013, Drake came down with leukemia. And after years of some chemotherapy, he is now in remission. But he visits his mother regularly and says he loves his mom and he believes she is innocent. And Darlie has never been allowed to hold her baby or touch him or hug him ever. So, what do you think about this case? In my opinion, I think that they did not have enough evidence to convict her. I mean, I look at a lot of the cases that people have been acquitted on a lot, with having a lot more evidence than this. Casey Anthony, a lot more cases. I mean, O.J. Simpson, I could keep going. I think that they convicted her on a silly string videotape. I think that her husband, I have a lot of questions. I think that there is a good possibility someone didn't think anyone was home. I don't know what the motive would have been because they didn't take anything. I'm not sure. But I think the whole case was really handled badly, because if they already thought she did it within 2 hours, if they thought she had already They thought the scene had already looked suspect within the 2 hours that they arrived. They didn't bother to go knock on neighbors' doors. They didn't bother to check out any other options, really. So, of course, they just looked at her. And they didn't even look at her husband. So, because of all that, everything was lost. They didn't secure the scene like they should have. DNA was gone, much like the JonBenet Ramsey case. They looked at the parents, but that's all the people that they looked at. This case was the same way. They looked at the mother. And that's what they do in cases. I get it. But that's not all you can look at. You have to look at everything. And they didn't. And I think time was lost. I think important evidence was lost. They kind of found things like the sock and fit them into their story instead of finding things and finding out what the true story was. And I think that's sad because that does happen in a lot of cases. And I'm not faulting them for this. I know people want to make people pay for horrible things that happen. I understand that. But we can't also just say, this is how it usually is, so it's probably this person. Because it's a very sad thing to watch, especially with parents and children. I hope that they got the right person because she's been sitting on death row for a very long time. But if they didn't, and they come back with this new DNA evidence, and she's been sitting in there, like we know other people have been sitting on death row, and DNA evidence have come back, and it was not them, it's going to be a really sad, sad day because she's missed out on her only child growing up. Anyway, friends, leave me some comments down below. Like it, share it. I hope that I'll see you next week for another case. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's probably going to be about Texas because everything's bigger. Here, I don't know about better, but it's definitely bigger. So I'll see you guys next week. Bye.